Hello everyone, it's Nina and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to do a kind of quick, casual video and do a little bit of a book unhaul. In the same way my book hauls are not usually very large, I also only have a couple books that I want to get rid of. I'm very particular about the books I add to my collection, so the ones I'm getting rid of today are either ones that I read and didn't enjoy, books that I still want to read or have read, but I just don't like the edition I have of them, and I'm probably going to get a different edition in the future, so I figured I would pass on these ones now, just to make a little bit more room in my shelves. Or just other books that I've decided I don't think I want to read anymore, or I started reading them and decided to DNF them, and I don't think I'm going to be coming back to them, so I also want to pass them on now so that, again, I can make more room for the books I actually want to have in my collection. The majority of the books I unhaul, I usually just put in random little free libraries in my area, although a couple of the books I have this time around are special editions, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to sell those. With most regular books, I feel like the return on investment for selling a book is not worth the hassle of going ahead and listing it online. But for special editions, I can definitely make back the amount of money I paid for them, so I feel like it's worth it a little bit more for me to put them online to sell. Anyway, with that intro out of the way, let's get into the video. The first book I'm going to be unhauling is Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. This book I got from a random thrift store in Boston. It's a historical fiction that follows Shakespeare's wife and children. I had been tangentially interested in this because a couple of booktubers I really like love this book, but it's a little bit out of my regular comfort zone. But I figured since I found it for like $2 at a thrift store, it was worth to taking a chance on. And my library also had the audiobook, so I started listening to the audiobook, and I think I probably got between like 6 to 10% of the way through. And it kind of was giving me the experience of like, you know when you're waiting for something and you keep checking your phone, and while you're looking at the clock, you're like, how has it only been 5 minutes? I feel like when I was reading this book, I was surprised that it had only been like 6% of the audiobook. And when I get the experience of like just like waiting for a book to be over, I know it's probably a good choice for me to just DNF it. So yeah, I wasn't really enjoying my reading experience of this, so I decided to DNF it pretty early on. And since I'm not interested in reading the audiobook, I also don't think I'm going to need the physical book. So yeah, I'm going to unhaul this one. It's a little bit beat up along the side, so I'm just going to put it in a random little free library in my area. The next book I have to unhaul is this particular edition of Dune by Frank Herbert. I really like Dune. I gave it 5 stars when I initially read it in 2020, but that initial reading I did from a library copy, and since I did enjoy the book and wanted a copy eventually, I found this at a local thrift store and decided to pick it up. However, I've learned I really don't like the reading experience of holding this one. It's really, really thick and kind of like a little larger than a traditional mass market paperback, but just like the overall thickness of this edition and like the density of the book makes me think that I probably won't reread the book from this particular edition. I'd rather get like a special edition or like a nicer, larger version of Dune instead of this one. And again, it was only like $1 when I picked it up from the thrift store, so I think putting this in a little free library will be a great find for someone else. Next book I have here is How Should a Person Be by Sheila Heti. This book I read in 2023. And it was my lowest rated book of 2023. I ended up giving it 1.5 stars. The only half star bumping it up from being 1 star was that I did like the writing style in the beginning, but everything else about this book I really disliked. All the characters were completely insufferable. I hated pretty much every decision the main character made. And this author also uses the R word, as well as makes some pretty strange claims about autistic people. And overall, I just felt like the ableism elements in this book made it pretty reprehensible. So I'm not interested in continuing to keep this book. I actually found this from a random little free library. And it's very funny because this book does have a couple like small notations in it. Like the previous person wanted to annotate it. Or maybe was reading it for school or some other class because they seem to be tracking specific themes. But there was a particular point where they stopped writing those things. And it's probably the same point when I was like, oh no, I really don't like this book. So yes, I'm just going to put this back in another little free library. And I'm sorry in advance to whoever the future reader of this book is. Okay, the next book I'm going to unhaul is one of the ones I'm going to be selling. And that is my Illumicate edition of A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed. This book is so incredibly beautiful. And it's also a book that is very well loved by a lot of people. However, this is just kind of a combination of a lot of things that aren't for me, or at least are things that I don't really enjoy in books. I did read the entire thing. I think I mentioned in my November wrap-up that I was reading it then, and I did finish it at the very end of November. And I ended up giving it 2.5 stars. There were some things in the writing style that I enjoyed, but overall just some other thematic elements and strange character choices made me not really enjoy it. But since this book is very well loved, and this particular edition I think is also quite sought after, I think someone else will enjoy having it in their collection a lot more than I will. So yes, I'm going to go ahead and probably sell this on Pango Books. The other special edition I'm going to be selling is The Sun in the Void by Gabriela Romero La Cruz. This was my very first book I got in my Illumicrate subscription, and at first I was very excited for it. However, in terms of the reception of this book, I've heard between like middle of the road to bad reviews for it. I also particularly saw a review on the Storygraph that said something along the lines of, if you don't like main female characters struggling and making bad choices in times of desperation, this book is not for you. And that is an aspect I definitely dislike in books. So I think it's safe to say this book is probably not for me. Again, this is a really beautiful edition. I'm sure someone else would like it more, but I don't feel like I need to put a lot of time into reading a book that is not going to be amazing for me. So I'm going to be selling this one as well on Pango. So the last two books I have in this unhaul are also ones that I probably will eventually read this book, but I just don't really like the editions I have of it right now. The first one is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I think this book won the Goodreads Sci-Fi Award in 2020 or 2021, and pretty much everyone that reads it says that they love it, even if they don't traditionally read sci-fi. However, I basically have also heard that the audiobook version of this book is pretty much essential reading when consuming it. So I feel like I should just wait and read the audiobook, and if I end up liking it, I'll get a paperback copy, because this particular hardback is really massive and it's taking up a lot of space on my shelves. This was another thrift store find that I probably got for like $1 to $2, and since it is such a beloved book, I'm sure it will be a happy addition for someone to find in a little free library. And the last book I have for my unhaul is The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. Again, I definitely want to read this book in the future, since I love the secret history so much. But I think, again, I want to listen to the audiobook first, and then probably buy a paperback copy if I like it. Because this particular edition, for whatever reason, is this really like dense hardcover that is super heavy. So I feel like the physicality of it is actually one of the things that's putting it off me wanting to read the book, because I don't want to deal with having to read this really physically heavy edition. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this in a little free library. Again, this was like a thrift store / like library store find. I think I paid for like between $2 to $3 for it. So it's no loss for me if I go ahead and donate it to a little free library. So here's a look at the books I'm going to be unhauling from my shelves. Honestly, a very necessary step, because my shelves, as always, are usually at max capacity. And I just got a bunch of new books from Christmas that I need to find homes for. So I'm glad that there's going to be an out with the old, in with the new, kind of revitalizing of my shelves in the near future. So with that, we are at the end of the video. Thank you guys, as always, so much for watching. If you enjoy my videos, consider liking this one, commenting, or subscribing if you aren't already. Any activity you do with my videos is really helpful for me as a small channel to get put in YouTube's algorithm, and I'm forever thankful for everyone that has commented or subscribed in the past. But that is going to be it for me today. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!